Hello, and welcome to another Marketing Minute episode on the Pregnancy Help Podcast. This is Delaney Walker, the manager of Extend Web Services, and I am joined by our social media specialist, Morgan. Your center's mission is rooted in compassion, but does that come through on your social media? In this episode, we're talking about how to define and refine your center's voice online. From choosing the right tone to speaking differently to clients and donors, we'll walk you through practical tips that make your post sound more human, more heartfelt, and more you. Plus, we've got a live read aloud segment that shows just how much your wording can impact how people feel. We hope this episode will help you show up with warmth, care, and consistency every time you post. Good morning, Morgan. How are you feeling about jumping into this topic today?
I feel great. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to equip our audience with the information they need regarding your social media presence and voice and what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm really excited because this is something that you have just naturally been doing in your role. Like when you're writing social media posts for pregnancy centers and maternity homes who have social media with Extend, you have been leaning in to that like warm, compassionate voice. Is that right?
Absolutely. And it's honestly amazing how many different ways you can accomplish that goal and how it can look different for each center. It could look different for each organization. And it's really cool to see, but it's also a challenge looking from the outside eye.
Oh, yeah. And I do think that like your posts, I think, are so natural and they seem so easy. So I don't know if it was something that you had to build up to. So before we really dive into the meat and the how to, can you just give us an idea of like, what was it like for you on the front end, building out this tone for pregnancy care centers and maternity homes?
Yeah. So thankfully I had so much help from people at Heartbeat, at Extend, just kind of giving more so providing me with the knowledge of like what people respond to well online.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of be trained into knowing like what works well and what doesn't. And then just talking with people in these organizations and these centers of what they really and truly want their social media to come across like. And other than that, it's just been through trial and error is the best way I can put it, because a lot of things work and things that worked maybe last month don't work as well this month. And so it's ever changing, but it's definitely cool because there are those very specific feelings and tones that always work well, no matter what, like being consistent and being like a consistent, trustworthy presence online. That never goes out of style. So yeah,
So
it's just, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit. I'm really excited about the things we're going to talk about. And all I was going to say is you're kind of touching on it right now, just a little bit, but can you dive a little bit deeper into why this matters? Like people have things to say. They just want to pop it up on social media. Why do they need to be careful about not only how they're saying it, but having that consistent brand voice, that tone as they're moving forward?
Yeah. So the biggest thing to know about your tone and how it comes across is before people are walking in your doors, they most likely have seen you online in some form or fashion, whether it's your website or your social media, whatever it may be. And so they already have an idea of what your center's personality is. More often than not. And so the importance is just, obviously you want to have a tone that shows you are wanting to help them and that you are wanting them to feel safe and seen and supported. And those are just important things that you want your social media presence to come across, because it might be the first thing they see about you. So that's one of the main things that I think is important, just because people are on social media and they're searching and they'll probably come across you before they go through your doors. So how do you want them to view you before they even meet you, I guess?
Oh, yeah. And we know people love to make opinions. And so anything you can do to make sure they walk away with the right opinion, uh, I think is helpful.
Absolutely.
I know that one of the, I don't know, I guess the going thoughts is that when you are writing to a particular age group or something, like say that 18 to 25 year old range, that maybe you want to be hip or you want to be trendy. You want to use some, I don't know, the latest lingo without pandering, but like maybe want to just kind of say certain things that is more in line with how they're speaking. But what I've noticed, at least from the posts you do, is that what you really lean into is being clear, being compassionate, and being consistent. So, what do you think about that? Should you lean into the trendy? Is it better to go to clear, compassionate? And if it is better, why do you do that?
Yeah, I think the hip and trendy, obviously there's a place for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a way to kind of combine the two because in my mind, being compassionate and consistent should always be trendy.
That's good.
And so it's just like when I am putting posts out there for my clients, I want them to show that compassion and the consistency. And it's been hitting home for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
that they're trying to reach. And so I don't know if it's like you said, it's not really about sounding hip or trendy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about that just consistent compassion and kindness of
Yeah.
just a welcoming spirit. So hip or trendy, I mean, there's so many ways that you could go into the hip or trendy realm and world. But at the end of the day, if you're just showing this clearness, compassion, consistency, I think that's more important at the end of the day.
I like that. I also think it's funny that you and I used hip and trendy so many times. Like if we had $1 for every time we used hip and trendy,
Too
we could
many
do
times.
we could do some damage at a vending machine, is all I'm saying.
Very true.
I do think real quick before we move on, because I really do want to get into, okay, where do we even start with this?
Hmm.
Um, I think it's important that we don't separate maybe how the person is feeling from their age. Um, what I mean is, yes, we might be talking to people who have certain words or certain ways of expressing themselves that might be different than me. Like as a mid 30s woman, I am not talking the same as an 18-year-old. However, that 18-year-old, it's not like I'm meeting her on her turf necessarily. I'm meeting her at a point of need. She is going through something. There is a need for the services that a center provides. And that I think is why that clear, compassionate tone works so well, is because yes, you are connecting typically with a younger demographic, but you're not just meeting that person in their normal day-to-day life. You are meeting them at a point where they are very open to hearing about the services you have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the biggest things about a clear voice on social media is
Mm-hmm.
you don't want them to be confused or misunderstanding what you're trying to put out there. So being clear in your social media voice and your presence is so important because, like you said, this is her time of need and she just needs to see a very clear cut thing
Yeah.
while also being warm and inviting.
So where do we even start with this? What are the questions that um what are the questions that a center or a home can ask themselves as they are looking at their social media posts or just their social media overall?
Yeah. So I think a good question to ask yourself would be, can you think of a time when you saw a social media post that felt totally disconnected from what you know that organization is actually like?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a kind of a loaded question, but it's a good one to ask because I think it keeps you aware of what you want and what you don't want to come
Mm-hmm.
across like on social media.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So maybe before they even get to their personal social media page, just taking a moment to consider like how are other organizations or businesses talking and the way they're talking on social media, does that match up with what they think they're like?
Right.
I like that. I know one of the other things that we have talked about is kind of looking when you're like working on a post, asking yourself, what do we want someone to feel after reading this post? Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah. So this kind of goes under the clear realm, I guess, for your social
Hmm.
media voice, because you don't want, obviously you want people to feel hopeful or
Hmm.
encouraged or supported. But if you're trying to touch all of those different words or feelings,
Hmm.
it's going to be hard to cover all of them. So you
Yeah.
need to have a concise couple of feelings, I guess, or like what you want them to feel. You want to
Yeah.
kind of touch on more specific things. So what I usually try to touch on is like you want to make them feel safe.
Hmm.
Um, and how that might sound, it could be something like you can breathe here, no pressure, just support.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, they might just need that little couple sentences of like,
Hmm.
we are here, even though you don't say we are here, but that gives them an idea that
Yeah.
you are here to help them. And you're not pressuring them to do anything. You're not telling them, well, you need to do this.
Yeah.
It's just a safe thing to read, a safe place. So, that's one of the top words I would say is very important. And then, like I said, hopeful. You want them to feel seen. And there are many different examples of these, but um, you just have to kind of nail down the few that you want to target
Hmm.
and really dive deep into those.
Okay, so I'm just going to hit you with some tone words because I know I know you've touched on some of them, but when we're talking about this, people might be like, I don't like, what do I want them to feel like
Hmm.
beyond safe? So rapid fire, I am just
All
going to
right.
hit you with some options. Okay. Calm, hopeful, reassuring, friendly, supportive, professional, warm, confident, trustworthy, approachable, compassionate, honest, caring, encouraging, gentle, clear, respectful, confidential, affirming, empowering, kind, grounded, positive, loving, soft spoken, relatable, uplifting, authentic, and inviting are just some of them.
Just some.
Just some.
Yes.
Just some of them. And I think like maybe picking what? Two, three, or not two, maybe three or four words that consistently you kind of like overall, this is how you want your post to land. That's a
Yes.
fairly good place to start, right?
Absolutely. Because obviously you don't want to overdo it, like I said,
Hmm.
because that will make it really hard to target people and have that clear consistency on
Yes.
online. So I think 3 to 4 is a very strong grouping because it doesn't have to be the same phrase every single time. Like if you want them to feel safe, it doesn't have to be that phrase I said earlier.
Sure.
Every time you want to make a post about that you want your audience to feel safe from,
Yeah.
there are so many different ways you can say a phrase or something or even a photo that makes them feel safe.
Okay. So you did hit the safe, which was, I believe you said something like you can breathe here, no pressure. There are people to support you, something like that. But I am curious. So we know what safe sounds like. Before we kind of shift over to what it looks like to be approachable, I did want to touch on a couple more examples. So if
Hmm.
that's what safe sounds like, what would something like empowered sound like?
Yeah. So empowered, it could be something like you can make a strong decision, one that's right for you.
Nice.
And that's just empowering them so that they know like you can make a decision, but
Hmm.
someone that's right for you. And that's still inviting because
Hmm.
even with your other posts, like you can breathe here. Well, that means that we're here so we
Yeah.
can help you make that decision. So they're all intertwined because they coincide with one another. And they're all the base of like, we're here to help in
Yeah.
some way.
I like that, especially since a lot of times people who are in a situation where they need to go to a pregnancy help organization, they feel like they have no options. They feel so ill-equipped and just not sure what to do. And I love how something like you can make a strong decision, one that's right for you. Just kind of I like when I read that, even though I'm not in a situation where I would necessarily need to hear it, it kind of makes me breathe a little deeper. And I'm like, okay, I got this. Okay, one last one before we we switch over, and that is hit me with one that is hopeful or seen, whichever one you prefer. So give me a hopeful one or a seen one.
Yeah, so I'll touch on the scene one, because I think it's really powerful. Not that hopeful isn't, but I just really like this one I've used for a post to make people feel seen, which is, you've got a lot on your plate. We're here to listen. And that's just acknowledging that they have a lot going on, because you never want to belittle what they're going through.
Sure.
And so it's acknowledging that there's a lot on your mind. You got a lot going on, and just how your center or organization is just a listening ear.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a very powerful statement. So that is what I would say for one example of feeling seen.
So good, Morgan. Okay. So before we move on to this next section, just one prompt for you lovely listeners. And that is, what words do you want your center to be known for? And after you decide what those three words are, take a moment and see if your posts reflect that. Okay, Morgan, an important piece of accurately conveying tone or connecting with people is actually sounding human, which I know sounds silly, or being approachable, which means you have to sound human. And I know that sounds silly because obviously we are human. We are writing these posts, but there's different things that maybe put up barriers when you're reading something or make you feel more connected. So walk me through some ways that you can sound approachable / sound human.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things is using contractions.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of "we are available to speak with you," just say something like "we're here to talk."
Right.
Very simple, clear, cut, concise. Another thing I would say is simplifying your sentence structure, because if you get too wordy, it's just people aren't going to read it. And social media, you do not have that much time to catch someone's attention. So
Right.
you need to have it very, very simplistic, but powerful. So an example of a wordy sentence would be, all of our services are provided in a professional, confidential manner.
Yeah.
Pretty wordy, a little more on the sterile robotic side. And so what I would do is change it to something like, everything we offer is free and confidential.
Nice.
Just very simple, gets the point across without throwing words at people.
Oh, yeah.
And another thing is using warm connectors in your sentences, your phrases, just something that's connecting you to your audience. So saying something like, "let's talk," which is including that you are a person, you want to have a conversation with them, or something like, "we want to walk with you," or "we'll walk with you."
Yeah.
Just something that's like an active component in your sentence of kind of showing how you would help them. And lastly, you want to avoid any legal or clinical phrasing, which I kind of touched on the first one, but you don't really want that sterile feel. You want it to feel inviting and encouraging to your audience.
Those are some really good tips. And I do think that it maybe goes against what some people believe, to use contractions or to simplify their sentence structure, especially if they have a broad vocabulary, or even to avoid the legal or clinical phrasing, because sometimes that makes us feel safe. But I think, like you have just explained, like all of those things, when you put them together, will make somebody feel like they are already connecting with you. When we think about this when you think about this for your center's page, here is a simple prompt for you. And that is, what's one robotic phrase you've seen on a center's website or your center's website or post that could use a little softening? So when you're scrolling through your post, just to kind of look and see what tone you're already conveying, and what tone you want to convey, keep an eye out for any of those maybe less than approachable phrases that are built in to what you're putting on social media. Okay, Morgan, we've talked about this before, and now it's time to talk about it again. There are different audiences, and that means we have different voices, not in a weird or fake way, but it does make sense to switch how you're saying something depending on who you're talking to. And then obviously, when we're talking about pregnancy help organizations, the two main groups we have are those clients and the supporters/donors. So walk me through that. What does it look like to speak to clients versus what does it look like to speak to those supporters?
Yeah. So obviously very different audience for each. A client voice, you want it to be more of a casual, supportive, first person, you're right alongside them, that kind of feel. For example, we talk about how it should sound like a friend or mentor who really cares. And so we've had a lot of examples today, but one for that would be something like, it's okay to not have everything figured out or not have it all figured out. And that really touches on your client side because that's what they're facing right then. And like we touched on earlier, it's them in their time of need, and you want to be that supportive friend-like presence to them. For the donor side, obviously you still want that friend-like presence. You want to be kind and welcoming, but for donors, it's a little more polished, formal, those feelings, just because those are the people who are supporting your mission and they're focused on that impact and how you can help your clients.
Yeah.
So you want to show them good growth or statistics or how you're helping these people. So an example for a donor would be something like, because of you, you didn't have to face that appointment alone. And so you want to encourage them into your mission and show them what their support is doing.
Yeah.
Just because they want to feel that impact just as much as you do, because that's the whole reason they want to be involved and want to help. They want to feel that growth and that love that you're giving your clients.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting because for both of the groups, you are coming alongside them. So for the clients, you are coming alongside them and saying, you've got this. We are here for you. Let's do this together. And for the supporters, you are saying, you're coming alongside them again, but you're saying, look at what we're accomplishing together. Together, we can blank. Together, we can make sure 3 moms this month get parenting classes. Together this month, we can reach abortion-minded, abortion-vulnerable women. Like you're still coming alongside them, but it's just like I think a kind of a subtle shift in what that end goal is. And then how you're talking. Donors more polished, and then clients more casual. And we have been, most of this podcast, we've been looking at that client social media. But just to remind you guys, again, you can apply these same things. So when you're looking at your supporter social media, again, think about like those 3 words that you're like, this is what we're going to look like. Those words might be a little different, but you might still have something like hopeful, encouraging. But you would probably have some more action-oriented words. Like they want to feel like you are making an impact, So everything we're saying, it can be applied to that as well. Morgan, we have something fun that's about to come up with our friend Monet.
Absolutely, we do. This would be exciting and fun.
And we hope it works. So we're about to invite Monet into the room. We are going to have her read some different text, some that are robotic and clinical, some that are kind of awkward and manipulative, and some that are more in line with that warm, compassionate professional, that vibe. We are not telling her ahead of time which section these words fall under, these sentences fall under. We're just going to have her do a blind read and then tell us how that line made her feel, what she's getting off of it. To give you an example of how people may be receiving some of the things you're saying if you don't have that established tone. Hello, Monet, and welcome to the Marketing Minute episode on the Pregnancy Help Podcast.
Hey, it's good to be here.
For those of you who may not remember, Monet is our web specialist and a fantastic member of the Extend Web Services team. Okay, Monet, what we're going to do is I will drop the sentence, and then what we need you to do is just read it out loud and then tell us how you feel about this sentence, how it sounds to you. Does it, I don't really want to put any words in your head, but just what your reaction to that sentence is, specifically maybe the tone of the sentence. Okay.
Let's do it. If you think you may be pregnant, please call our office. So the cuff, I think it's pretty bland. I think it's pretty impersonal. So, um, obviously you're giving them direction. You're giving them a weak invitation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think there could be a little bit more friendliness to the invitation.
Guys, this is what I'm going to do. I'll let you know, like, after she reads it, which one it is. That was one of our more like robotic and impersonal ones. So far, Monet is hitting it right on the head.
Right, I'm ready for the next one. Real women choose life. Um, so to, yeah, it's blatantly kind of offensive. I think that someone who sees that, even if they're conflicted, they're going to think very that you value certain women's choices or certain women based on their choices less than others,
Mm-hmm.
and they may become closed off just from seeing that.
Morgan, do you want to tell them which one that was?
Yeah, so that one fell under the awkward slash manipulative category. So Monet definitely was right on brand for that one as well.
Nice.
We'll talk through your options and support you, whatever you decide. Okay, so I definitely think that one is a lot more inviting. I think someone who is going to read that is going to see, okay, maybe I can take a step forward with a little more ease and not going to be bombarded based on the way whatever I choose.
Yeah. Morgan, which one was that?
That one fell under the warm, compassionate, professional
Mm-hmm.
tab. So that obviously you could tell Monet had a much better thought and opinion about
Yeah.
that one because it shows that it's a lot more compassionate and a lot more welcoming.
Yeah. So for the next three guys, we're not going to have Monet take off her headphones. Because it's going to be, again, follow the same pattern of robotic, manipulative, and then warm. Let's see how the final three do.
The facility does not provide abortion services. Cool. I don't think is really doing much. It's kind of not worth the post.
Mhm.
It's definitely just kind of letting someone know something without giving any sort of welcoming or, yeah, it doesn't do much. Okay. Don't make a choice you regret forever. Once again, I think that's probably just super awkward. Don't make a choice you regret forever. Yeah, I think it's missing it again. It's not really something that you should be posting. And then you're stronger than you feel right now, and you don't have to do this alone. That's the winner right there. This should be a post of encouragement and, encouraging their ability, and you'll walk alongside them. So
Mhm.
I think that that's fantastic.
Oh my goodness, Monet.
Uh, Perfect, actually.
You did.
Golden star.
A plus all around. You did so well. I was telling Morgan, I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, I don't know. Like, what if
Neither
she
did I.
likes?
Well, the fact that Monet said word for word how it feels was the actual
Right.
name of our label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monet, thank you so much for joining us for this little game. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Good job, guys.
Bye,
See you,
Monet.
Monet.
We're shifting into wrapping up. But before we do that, Morgan, can you kind of walk us through what it looks like to build a voice guide for an organization? Like, I know we've touched on a couple different things. So maybe can you just hammer home this is kind of what you would want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're setting up a voice guide, there are a few things you want to keep in mind, just so everyone on your team
is on the same page and they know what is expected and what's wanted, etc. So right off the bat, you obviously want to come up with a few keywords. And Delaney listed off so many examples that you could choose from. But examples like calm, hopeful, trustworthy, and then again, all the ones we talked about earlier and so many more. And so we talked about being in that 3 to 4 range of just pick some words that you really feel like you want your center to exemplify and just show in their social media presence. And it would be good to come up with some do's and don'ts of like sample text, sample post of like, let's say a phrase like, let's talk or we'll walk with you, and have some examples of some phrases you would like to avoid, like contact us for more info.
Okay. So you would say, let's talk versus contact us for more info.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So more of the encouraging ones that we've talked about throughout this episode of saying, we'll walk with you, or we want to be there for you, things like that. And then have some examples of a couple phrases you'd like to avoid. So that example I just said was something like contact us for more info.
Yeah.
Because that kind of falls under that sterile, impersonal tone. So I think having some language examples could be helpful, especially with organizations and centers having a good amount of turnover over the years. You want people to come in and kind of just walk right into, this is what we want to sound like. Here are some examples of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
And then touching on the client versus donor relationship with each, I think having sample posts for each would be good. And like Delaney said earlier, this whole episode can go for both in different ways, both for clients and for donors. But it would be good to have like do's and don'ts examples for both relationships.
I was wondering about that. Do you think it's like too ridiculous to have a client social media voice guide and a donor social media voice guide? Like if they were two separate things that had their own 3 to 4 tone words, had their own do don't language, and had their own like sample examples of like, these are the kind of posts we like.
Yes. I think having 2 separate would be a great idea.
Nice.
Obviously there's some similarities. Like if you want to have both of them be encouraging, that's great. It's just going to look different for donor versus client. So I think having a voice guide for both would be very beneficial, especially like I said, for when new people join your team, just so that they have a very, very clear cut, this is how we would like to be perceived. I think there are a few questions, whether it's just for your team every once in a while or a new person coming in. I think a good prompt or a good question to ask is, if your intern wrote a social post tomorrow, would they know how it should sound or how you want it to sound? And I think that's a good question. Even if it's not an intern, even if it's someone who doesn't necessarily deal with the social media, the tone is so much more than social media and online. It's also when people have that face-to-face interaction and conversation in the center. So I think if you ask that question to anyone on your staff, I think it could be beneficial in so many ways, because I think it would really connect your team and give you guys all a very similar idea of like, these are the main points and the main like feelings we want to touch on.
I like that. And I'm about to climb up on my soapbox just really briefly, I promise. But going in hand with what you said, where it's like, if, your intern wrote a social media post tomorrow, these voice guides could help them. I just think training sometimes at whatever business organization that you're at, sometimes training for new employees can be rough. I mean, everybody's got a lot to do on their plates, and training someone means you have to make an adjustment to what you're doing. So having things like a voice guide, brand guides, other guides that I'm sure we will touch on in the future, they, I think, do a lot towards helping people hit the ground running when they are training for a new role.
Yeah.
So real quick, as we're wrapping up, just to remind you guys, your voice online is one of your most powerful tools in terms of connecting with that person even before you've met them. Also, spend some time, take 15, 20, 30 minutes and figure out how you want to be seen. And to make this easier, we are going to create a voice guide. It will probably be out in the same marketing e-blast that has this episode. For those of you who don't know, we have a marketing e-newsletter that goes out every month. It is just chock full of marketing tips, actionable marketing tips and information for you. Everything from scaled marketing to social media, and even a free social media tip that I post that Morgan has designed. So if you guys are interested in receiving that newsletter, please shoot us an email at support@extendwebservices.com, and we will be sure to get you on there. Also, if you are just throwing your hands up in the air because you're like, ugh, social media, that's just one more thing I have to think about, but we know social media is important. You are always welcome to reach out to Morgan to talk about what it could look like to work with her on your social media. Morgan, could you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the social media manager specialist at Extend, and I would love if you need help with social media, or even if you just have questions about social media. And it doesn't even have to be about a tone or a voice topic. Just if you have questions in general, my email is mgerig, Gerig, @extendwebservices.com.
We have 3 different tiers for social media packages. If you are looking for a specific product, then we are happy to see what we can do about finding one that fits your budget. Most of all, we want to empower, encourage, and equip you. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it. We hope you have a wonderful day.